Okay, good morning. For the record, I'm Chris Young, Chair of the HDC's SAC. Let's confirm access. Members respond with an aye when I call your name. Paul Wolf.
Here.
And Mark Gattone.
Aye.
Okay. Thanks for staff. We have Esmeralda Martinez.
Present.
This open meeting of the HDC's SAC is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020. That order, posted with the agenda materials for the meeting, allows public bodies to convene remotely so long as public access to deliberations is reasonably provided. This meeting is convening via Zoom with video and audio recording that will be available on the town's YouTube channel. We will feature public comment. Materials provided to members for the meeting or during the meeting will be available on the town's website. During the meeting, I'll introduce agendas, topics, and speakers. Please remember to mute your Zoom audio until your name's called. Direct comments and questions through the chair to avoid crosstalk and make the taking of minutes easier. Votes will be conducted by roll call. So let's call the meeting to order at 9:05 on December 20th, 2022. Do we have well, we're going to make an amendment to the agenda, removing items 4 and 5. Do we have a motion to approve that amended agenda?
So moved. Second.
Thanks. Are we in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay, thank you. Let us move on to the approval of minutes from our last meeting, which I think the last minutes we had was November. I don't believe we had minutes for the last meeting. Is that correct, Esmeralda?
I believe so. Billy was supposed to send those out,
December
but I don't
6th.
think he did. I don't think he did.
Yeah, we haven't seen those yet. So
Okay.
we'll table that.
Got it.
Commissioner's comments. Is there any commissioner that has a comment they'd like to make? Seeing none. Any public comments? Is anybody on the line for public comments not related to a specific application? Seeing none, we'll move on to new business. We have the Athenaeum. Applying for a new sign is Ann Scott on the line.
Yes, hi, good morning.
Hi, Ann. Would you like to introduce us to your application?
Hi, yes, thank you. So I'm Ann Scott. I'm the head librarian and executive director for the Nantucket Athenaeum. Since I've been with the Athenaeum, I joined in 2019 as head librarian, and one of our goals is to be an organization that's welcoming to the whole island community. And you know, one of the barriers that we have found, and I have found since then, and other staff have commented, is that we have a really tough time because our building is so beautiful and so historic, and also can be kind of intimidating. We've had local residents tell us that they did not know that this was a library. We have communities that are underserved that we're trying to let them know that we're here and that we're open and that we're free to all. And it's, you know, part of what we do is democratizing the access to knowledge, and we want to do everything that we can to ensure that everyone has access to the services and materials that are here in this wonderful organization. Within the packet, I'm sure you have it in front of you. Let's see, image 7 of the Athenaeum. You can see that at one point in that lower left quadrant, there's a sign. There's a public information sign, and that was present at least up until 2011. I think that's the last documented photo that we could date. And it's kind of a mystery how and why the sign actually came down. And we found it in storage, and it wasn't in the greatest repair. And in looking at the other, signs that exist throughout the historic district that are public information signs, and in looking at the ordinance for a public information sign and the precedent of having this sign, we respectfully submitted an application to you in the hopes that we could employ a local woodworker, fine finisher, Ben Moore, to recreate that sign with the same dimensions, and it's a double posted sign, same colors, white with the gold lettering to mirror what exists on our actual building. The one change in the signage would be the change in what is written. I believe that the original sign maybe said Nantucket Athenaeum, which we feel is, there we go, Athenaeum Library, which we feel is important information. At the same time, it would really help with what we're trying to accomplish for the community if we could express that this is a place that is free and open to all. So the proposed sign has that change, which there should be in the drawing, which I can't see all of the pages on the side, and there's a larger, I believe there's a larger drawing, but there you can clearly see the change. The lettering is the same style. It's just a little extra information there to help people feel that we're welcoming and free for everyone.
Okay, thanks for that. I think there is some history on this that we should look up, and it might be worth doing before we get too deep into deliberations, but we'll let everybody weigh in on this, because I do recall that sign was replaced. There was a period where those signs on the posts at the end of the entry were applied for replacing this freestanding sign. So I think it would be worth looking. Yeah.
Actually, you can see in the photo that is submitted that has the live.
I see what you're saying.
Number 7. We have both. We have both there. We have the.
Yeah, I see that. I do recall. I just think that we should pull the file, because I know you were saying it was a mystery as to why it was removed. I just want to refresh everybody's memory, because it has been a while. If there was any history on that, and just so that we're all able to, go back through the notes. So Esmeralda, I would just ask for I know it takes a little while to pull the file, but I think it's important in this case. Let me have the board members weigh in, and Anna, I would just ask, let them speak.
Absolutely.
So we won't have crosstalk. So Mark, do you have any comments?
It's going to result in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 signs that I can at least see in the photo. Not including what's over on the Weasley Library, Children's Library. I don't feel strongly that this has to come back. I'm probably going to hold any sort of real decision or weighing in or recommendation until we pull the file to refresh our memory. I feel like whatever they're trying to accomplish could either be done in their existing armature, those 2, especially on the pillars upon the entry, and also through larger marketing campaigns in general, in terms of making this more accessible. I don't know that just adding the word free to a freestanding sign is maybe the best path. We have to be sensitive to this property in general, and if it indeed a freestanding element has been gone for several years, it's actually lost its grandfathering of any kind, and this would not be in line with the guidelines to bring it back. So I have some concerns, some reservations, but again, I'm going to kind of wait until we see the maybe see the history on this a little bit further. Thanks.
Good, thanks, Mark. Paul?
Regarding this particular application, before we review the file, is the proposed sign any higher or taller than the one that's in the picture?
It is not.
It's the same shape.
Same dimensions, yes.
All right. My concern is with the wording on the sign. The original says Athenaeum Library, I believe. And I think if you replace it, you ought to keep the same wording. To put in on the sign, on a permanent sign, that it's free. It's not the name of the Athenaeum, it's advertising. And I think it's no different from putting a sign for a sale sign on the window of a store. I think the sign is designed to identify the building, the facility, and the fact that it's free is not related to that. So I think the original wording is much more appropriate. That's it.
If Chair, I may add.
Mark?
Yeah, I would agree
Go
with
ahead.
Paul just said. I actually had that thought as well. I think if that were to come back and the intent is to communicate accessibility to the local community, there are 3 armatures in which they can post some sort of campaign within those windows in terms of accessibility. I don't think it needs to be applied to a sign itself. We don't encourage that with other signage. It almost seems to start to fall under hours and things like that. So they have an hour placard, I think, to the right of the door now. So I'd agree with what Paul said in terms of the actual content on the armature, should that come back. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I see that Kevin and Ben have joined. Let me just officially, Ben Norman, are you online?
Yes.
Okay, and Kevin Kuster, you're
Yes.
online?
Yes,
Okay, thanks. Were you two able to hear the introduction to the application?
yes.
Yep.
Okay, so Kevin, would you like to make any comments?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I agree with what has been said. Somehow I recall this being applied for a number of years ago, and it was probably under a previous director. So no doubt the new director might not have been aware of that, but I feel that when we have the ability to not put a freestanding sign back in, we should take advantage of that, because one of our primary goals is to not have freestanding signs. And I think the message can be delivered on the front entry to two little menu boxes that are there. Plus, I think any kind of public information trying to be read on a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper from where that sign box is kind of impractical for a public information sign. So my recommendation would be to not approve this. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And Ben?
Yeah, I think everybody said kind of what I was thinking, and just one last thing, and I don't think it's going to be applicable, but I am noticing that the existing sign seems to be on either a single post or 2 posts below the box, and the drawing shows 2 posts coming up through the side of the box, and it kind of connected through a bar or something. I don't think this sign's going to go anywhere anyways, but if we did start to think it was going to be approvable, then this way of suspending it is not going to work for me. But I think that's a moot point anyways. So.
Okay, thanks. So I do think it's important that we go through the history, because this sign has some history with the board, and it's important that we understand sort of just for sake of the applicant understanding our precedents and history that we review that. So, but generally speaking, Ann, it doesn't sound like this freestanding sign is getting much traction towards recommendation for approval from us. I would like to,
I'm-
go ahead. If you'd like to make any comment, go.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing the history of the file. I think we ourselves, looked for information about why it came down, and so it'd be great to have access to that.
Okay.
And I think that's, yes, I, imagine that is very important to the decision here. I would just like to say that it's interesting, the thoughts around free to all as being, advertising is an interesting word, because we're an organization that provides free services to empower and to enrich this community. We're not trying to make any kind of profit. We're giving away free library cards. And I think there's a difference between simply saying free and saying free to all. It's a message of inclusivity. So I'm just, share those thoughts with you.
Okay, well, thank you. And understanding that the staff is burdened with a lot of work to begin with, and now that it sounds like a lot of them are out sick, Esmeralda, what do you think is realistic for being able to find these files and have them ready for a follow-up meeting? Is it?
Oh, that
you think?
could be, that could be arranged. The next meeting wouldn't be till January 9th.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
so that would work.
great. So let's make a motion here to hold this. Would somebody like to make that motion?
So
I make
moved.
a motion to hold for further information.
Second,
Thank you, Mark. Thanks, Paul. Ben, are you in favor? Kevin,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
and Paul?
aye.
Thank you, guys. And thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
We will see you again with some more information in hand.
Great.
Thanks. Okay, second item on the agenda is 54 Old South Road. Tori, are you on the line for this?
Good morning, everybody. Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Introduce us to this application, please.
Okay, this is an existing building. I tried to give you as much information as I possibly could. Old South Road, to the right of the Nantucket Kitchen Design Building. It was formerly a Coast Home, I believe it was called, that has left the tenancy. There's a new bookkeeping company moving in. An existing bookkeeping company that's currently officed downtown. And she would like to do the same sign that she had on her door downtown, but on a proper above the door sign under the existing lighting. I did not include the prior Coast application, but I might have that somewhere to give you the prior dimensions compared to the newly proposed dimensions. But she's looking to do, as I've bubbled, item line number 2, as far as the layout, sizing, and whatnot. And I believe all the details you primarily asked for are notated on the application. And I gave 2 photos, one for context of the existing building and then the building next door. Any questions, please?
Okay. Is there a photograph of the existing approved sign in this application?
So the
Well,
existing
is that the
situation,
last
yeah.
slide?
I don't think so. The existing sign was a magnetic door emblem, similar to the ones people put on the side of their car. It wasn't hanging on a Armitage or on the building. It was in the basement level of a downtown building.
Okay, so likely was not
See
approved
the
by
last
us
slide?
then.
I don't think so.
Can we see slide
Okay.
6, what it's worth? Is that, yeah, thank you.
So yeah, this is, I gave you this to try and determine a very specific color for you. The owner of the bookkeeping company refers to it as more of a teal, but Gretchen from the UPS store kind of put this together for me to give me as close as she could to the name of the color, which doesn't really give you a name of a color, but I just wanted to kind of give you as much information as possible.
Okay, I think we would want to get a color swatch if there's going to be, because we're seeing a lot of range between the two slides, 5 and 6. And
Yeah, obviously, yes, one's a screenshot in an email and one is a drafting color that was chosen. So I definitely could perform or provide a best case scenario match color swatch for you.
can we see the application for a moment, Esmeralda?
I don't
Okay,
recall
so
this in the view.
we're,
I don't recall this in the view pack. Was it a late edition or?
it's not in the view pack. That's what,
It was not on the view pack. That was my mistake.
okay.
Oh, okay, but it was filed in time.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so as far as a border, edge banding,
The owner of the business was suggesting to keep it the same color as the background. Or if you prefer, I put the option of doing a black edge banding, all painted. There's no beveled edge or anything. And we're thinking,
okay.
I'm not sure if incised is the right word, but we're thinking that it would be made on a CDC machine and then painted within. Is that incised? Is that correct?
Carved, essentially.
Carved, yeah.
Recessed carving, okay.
Yeah.
All right, let me go down the board. Ben,
So Erica does my payroll, so I gotta recuse myself from this one.
okay. Kevin,
I have no issue with the sign going in where it had previously been. However, I don't feel like the typography is appropriate. It's too new looking of a script to be anything that's sort of antique. And I think it's a bit out of context with the building itself and Old South Road. I would opt for something a little simpler as far as typography. I think it needs some sort of a border or a frame. And I'd also be a little cautious about any kind of a colored background or sign there. Just, for readability in that environment. So I think it needs a little bit of work. Those are my comments. Thank you.
okay, thanks. Paul,
Chris, I'm going to pass on this one.
okay. Mark,
Can I see the typography again, please? Not topography, type, the graphic, thank you. I don't know that I have much issue with it. I do share, I guess, some of Kevin's concerns, but maybe not enough to hold up anything. I would definitely want to see a border. I think it should be in black. And we should definitely get a proper color chip for the file because it's not clear as to what color we're approving here today. I guess beyond that, I don't know that I have much of a concern here. So this is only, yeah, it's 14 inches tall, 6 feet wide. Yeah, I think otherwise I think I'm okay.
okay, thanks. And Paul, let me just go back to you for a moment. Are you recusing or you just had no comment?
I'm recusing.
Okay, so there's 3 of us on this then.
I've got a question regarding the slide that's up right now. What are the 2 signs? Why are there 2 different sizes what am I looking at? One
Sure,
says 10.
sorry,
Thanks, Dory. Go ahead.
if that's okay through you,
Yes, please.
Cool. Kevin, that was us trying to figure out what she liked best of sizes and the relationship to the typography. So she ended up choosing 2. Of course, I'm happy to remove the other 3 options and give you a clean page with just the one. I did bubble it to reference that's the one we were applying for. I
Okay.
apologize for any confusion.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I guess, Chris, I've got one more comment on that. I'd like to see how that scales out on the building, to have that presented somehow. And I feel like if there, I'm still not in favor of that typography. However, any typography, including this one, I think it needs, more air around it to make it kind of sit within the space a little bit. I think you're close, but it feels like it's kind of being chopped off at either end a little tightly. Anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. So for my comments, I agree with Mark where the typography doesn't seem too out of line with me. It definitely needs a border. So Tori, I think everybody's saying a black border around the perimeter, which is something just to sort of keep that field contained.
Yep.
And along the lines of what Kevin was saying, I think that I don't usually say make signs bigger, but I'm not sure how this sign is going to look on the front of the building. If it's going to be too small, giving a little more space around the wording, especially if you're going to add a black border, might be something worth considering. I mean, I don't think it needs to go to 10 feet, but just giving it a little more breathing room and helping it be a little more readable could just be in the best interest of the applicant. So so I think that you're getting 2 out of 3 votes for a recommendation here with some minor adjustments. Maybe Kevin would be swayed differently if we see a new design. So do you want to make a motion, anybody, for?
Yeah, I'll
hold
make a
this.
motion to, well, one other quick comment is, I think when you scale it up, I would encourage you to determine what the size of your what the size of your lettering is, so that you can get a sense of what viewing it would be like from the road, which is where primarily I think this will be read. It just roughly looking to me like you've maybe only got a 3 or 4 inch letter.
Yes, if you do look to the right of the bubbled drawing, you can see, looks like it's 4 and 9/16 inches is the
Okay.
general sizing of the lettering.
I mean, I think you'd be well served to print something out and put it up, even if it's just one word, because I got a feeling it's just going to be really hard to read from the road, because number one, it's a script. Number two, it's small, and script, in my opinion, was really never designed as a font for signs. It was more of an advertising font and a, invitation stationery kind of a font. That's why I don't see it working well as a sign. I think the readability is a problem, but it might be worth checking out just so you don't spend all the money on a sign and then you can't read it.
So through you, Mr. Chair, may I just say a few things?
Yes, Tori.
I'm sure the applicant would be amenable to adding a couple inches on the left and the right to lengthen and create more space, as you have suggested. The black border is no problem. I would assume a painted black border would be okay with all of you. Is that right?
I think so. That's certainly worked in the past.
And then maybe I could print out a paper version of this and take a picture of it up there to get and present that to you guys. Is that an idea, or should I do it in an elevation drawing?
That's your decision. We're just trying really, I think we want to make sure it works, right? I
Yeah.
think that we're actually working here to just make sure the sign accomplishes its goal for your sake and the applicant's sake. But something to scale on the building, whether it's Photoshop or an actual photograph with a printed paper or whatever, works to see sort of how it looks on the building would be helpful. And
Is,
then a
um,
color
if-
chip.
Chris, if I
Yeah,
may,
Mark.
on the scale thing, is the concern it's too small when you're saying that, the sign? Because it's a 3-foot door and it's a 6-foot sign, so it's going to project 18 inches left and right of that existing opening. It looks like the shingle non-weathered area is almost exactly that now.
I
It looks
think
like
it's very similar, yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, so I mean, if others want it, by all means, we should request such, but I think it's going to be very close to what was there and what is represented currently by the white shingles above the door, and knowing that door is 36 inches wide minimum. So just if that helps anybody.
I agree with you, Mark. I was more worried about just as Kevin was saying, that once we add a border, that's if
Yeah.
the sign isn't made larger, that would, I think, mean the lettering would have to be made slightly smaller.
Yeah,
And I just don't want it to end up looking like a, squiggly line that's hard to read as you're driving down the street. But anyway,
So if I
and a
may
color
ask you a
chip, I think,
question,
Tori, a color chip would be important.
yes, I'll work on
Yeah.
that immediately. How does it work with revisions if you guys are looking for some more information? Does it still go to HGC tonight or do we present back to you?
So-
next time?
That's a great question. So you have the option, if you would like us to hold this so that we can write a recommendation or come up with a favorable recommendation. That's an option that we can follow. If you say you'd like us to make a recommendation right now and have it go to the meeting tonight, we can it could go up with, the recommendation that would probably be asking for revisions, depending on what the board votes. So it is your call. You can always take an application to the board and present your case there
Okay, and am I correct? that if
without
you-
a
Yeah.
favorable recommendation from us.
Sorry, one more question. If I ask you to give a recommendation, let's say for revisions, as you suggested possibly, to the board for tonight's meeting, could I make the approvals with them with those recommendations type of thing? In for a timing, efficient timing sake? Rather
I
than waiting
don't-
for weeks? Okay,
Right. I don't know that they would approve it without seeing it, applied for, just like they do with house designs. I assume they would want to see the actual application in front of them at that time. So,
I was
Esmeralda,
thinking-
you might be able to,
yeah, I was thinking like through staff with your suggestions type of thing.
that would be their call. That would be
Okay.
their decision, not ours.
Okay,
So we're here to basically make a recommendation, vet this application, make a recommendation for them to
Yes.
vote on. It sounds like our board's recommendation will be to hold for revisions, if you wanted it to go to tonight's meeting.
okay, I would love to satisfy your guys' favorable recommendation, so I think we'll hold, get you a paint chip, get you some sort of elevation, whether photoshopped or otherwise, show the black border. Did I get everything? And maybe a little couple more inches on the right and left. Or play around with the size of the topography.
Sounds like that hits all of the points that were raised. So would somebody like to make a motion? We have Mark or Kevin.
I think I started one, so yeah, I'll make a motion to hold for revisions and further information.
Okay, thanks.
second,
And last question, do you
Mark,
know when the next meeting is? Do you guys go every 2 weeks or every week?
So every 2 weeks, I think January 9th, is that what you said, Esmeralda?
Yes, January 9th would be the
thanks.
next one.
Okay,
Okay, thanks. We have a motion that's been made and seconded. Mark, you're in favor?
aye,
And Kevin?
Aye.
Okay, I am as well.
okay, thanks very much, guys. Happy holidays, everybody.
Thanks,
Same
Dorothy.
to you, Tori.
All right, so we have one application left. Is that right, Chris Yates? And is Linda on the line?
She is not on the line. I don't know if you want to review it.
take a look, I guess.
Yeah, take a look at it. Let's see. So this is for a projecting sign for Eastwood on their existing building, which has a wall sign previously approved. 20 by 20. certainly within our size guidelines.
Can we
Open
see
it up for comment.
materials or the application? Is it painted, carved?
Hoping it's wood considering his business.
I know.
Open it up for comments.
Flat.
Mark, you want to start?
Yeah, I don't think I have any concerns with this. It looks, I just wanted to, it looked graphically looks fine. It's consistent with the sign over the door. Scale is fine, appropriately placed. There are two, it is tangent to an entry. The application in terms of execution seems consistent with our guidelines, so no concerns.
Okay. Kevin?
I have nothing to add.
All right. Paul?
I don't remember, or I can't see what the front sign, the wall sign says. But do we need to have the word Nantucket on the sign? We've discouraged that in the past.
Okay. Good point. Ben?
Yeah, I agree with Paul. If it says, I didn't
Okay.
notice Nantucket, but we don't typically approve that.
Sorry, what is it?
Okay.
The concern? I don't think I was able to.
The word
Oh.
Nantucket being below the,
Oh,
You know where
and
we
I
are.
believe the front of it, the wall sign on the front, I believe is just a quarter board that says Eastwood.
I think we should be
In this
consistent.
same,
Yep.
okay.
um,
Would anybody like to make a motion?
can I just see, I'm just curious if, bear with me a second here. There we go. 1 second. Curious if I can see it. Curious what's on there now. Let's see. It is not on Google Earth yet, so, okay. Yeah, I guess we can hold and see what the other sign says. Or,
I'd make a motion to approve without the word Nantucket.
Second,
Okay. Mark, are you in favor?
yeah, I'm in favor. If they have a concern with that, they can certainly come back, but otherwise we can approve with you with that removed.
Okay. Ben? Paul?
aye,
And Kevin?
All right,
Okay, I'm in favor as well. So that takes care of that application. In the view pack, we had 12 major, oh, that was the one that we got pulled. Okay, so then that finishes all the new applications. I see in our participants, we have Frank Daly and we have discussion of construction signs on the agenda. So let's move to that. And then we can follow up with enforcement at the end. So Frank, are you on to make
I
any
am.
statements?
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
This is very much just a preliminary discussion. I spoke to a number of people in Plus, spoke to a lot of my contemporaries, other builders. I'm president of the Nantucket Builders Association. So in that capacity, I also spoke to board members and members of the Nantucket Builders Association. And the general thoughts are that everyone's a little confused on what the best thing to do is. I started this conversation about 2 years ago with the HDC, and there was also a little bit of confusion as to what the best thing for these temporary signs are. So I'm coming today just to begin that discussion, try to make it a formal thing where I don't know if we panel a number of people to discuss this or what the process is, but I did want to get it on record that the various contractors on the island have a little bit of a confusion. We're looking for some insight as to how best present a construction sign.
Can Chris, if I
Yeah.
may, more of a question, maybe internally. Did we not in our last revisions of guidelines make a recommendation on this? I know there has been, for Frank's benefit, lengthy discussion on this, both internally and externally, I believe. And I know specifically Kevin had cited what he thought was a good example of a construction sign, and I thought we adopted that as our standard. And is that not
Mark.
documented in our guidelines
It
currently?
is. And I was going to read those just to make sure
All right,
that
thank you.
Frank and anybody that wants to listen in understands that in the review and revision to the sign book, which was done, I believe, it's dated here. It's back in August of 21, actually. We did have a revision to the construction site signs, and that was really to address, as I recall, the fact that originally construction signs were supposed to be mounted to the structure, and in a lot of cases with long driveways or where the structure doesn't exist yet because it's under construction, we had to figure out how to allow for construction signs that would work to serve the purpose of identifying the location for safety reasons, for the DEP numbers, et cetera. So the definition is construction signs are temporary signs erected on the premises on which construction is taking place during the time period of such construction to identify the job site. Sign may include the name of the architect, engineer, landscape architect, contractor, or similar artisans involved in the project, as well as emergency and contact information. The size should not exceed 11 by 17 inches. That was an increase, I believe, from the previous, which was a 1 square foot allowance. It's preferred that construction signs be attached or affixed to a structure, building, or fence. They shall not be freestanding. However, should the location of the project or site conditions make the placement on the building impractical, a single 4x4 wooden post freestanding sign not to exceed 4 feet in height will be considered. Provisions are that one site is permitted per lot. They'll have a minimal number of colors on a white background. Logos and identifiers shall be no more than 15% of the sign. Due to the temporary nature of the sign, non-wood material will be considered. Construction signs must be removed upon the substantial completion of the project. So that's what the sign book has said should be the guidelines for any
Another
construction
point of
signs.
Another point of clarification, maybe, Chris, if I may, sort of through you again.
Yes, please.
Am I correct in that these signs still need to be applied for? Correct?
Yes, they do.
And therefore, we would have the capacity to, just like we do with any temporary sign, put a window on that of sort of a date at which it can go up and when it should come down. And I think we would look to the contractor for a recommendation when that comes down so that these signs do not linger. We have found these signs to linger well past completion. And they really, should be coming down at point of completion. We've accommodated these mostly for delivery purposes and for emergency in the event there was an accident that emergency vehicles could find the property. And so really for those two reasons is why we accommodate these at all, for delivery of product and material, and in the event an emergency vehicle had to make its way to the site. Beyond that, there's really no reason for these signs to be there. So I do want to just preface going forward, we should make sure we do put those dates on there, just like we do with temporary event signage, sales signage, and so on. So I just want to add that as part of the commentary.
Great, thanks. Before we go back to Frankie, I want to go around the board. So Kevin.
Oh, good. Thank you. Yes, we did spend a lot of time on this a year or two ago. I'll just add that we looked at this at the request of the Deputy Director of Planning, and this was advertised. The changes were advertised, reviewed, and approved by them. And I feel like they're quite clear. There are a number of people that I see complying and some that aren't. I think the primary goal has been to make them less, more informational, like Mark said, and less advertising oriented. So I feel like it's pretty understandable. I'm not sure what else we we could add, but those are my comments. Thanks.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, no, I think, I pulled up the sign book too, and it's pretty clear in there what is allowed. You know, I guess I have my tail between my legs. I know a developer client of mine has been moving my sign around for a number of years. So I sort of am as guilty as the rest of them. But I think it is something that we all need to clean up, you know, in the industry, because, you know, it's gotten out of control. I think they've turned into billboards. And that's really not the intent and not the precedent we want to set.
Thanks, Ben. Paul?
I agree with everything that's been said. I might ask Frank if it would be helpful if the guidelines were somehow distributed to members of the organization to clarify things, or anything we can do to make them helpful or to clarify things for them.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, and I'd weigh in on saying that we've worked really closely with the realtors through the years to try to keep the freestanding signs that, you know, are very common off island, where for sale and realtors putting their freestanding signs on properties, that they've never proliferated here on Nantucket. And I think that we'd like to have that same relationship with the Builders Association so that we can kind of keep things in check, because it has gotten to be a problem where we're seeing more and more of them. They're getting bigger, more colorful, et cetera. So, you know, understanding the importance of having identifiers at projects for sake of safety, deliveries, et cetera, it does need to be kept in check. So Frank, it would be great to work with the NBA to figure out a way to communicate this. Obviously, we're not seeing a lot of the applications either. So, you know, just letting them know that they should apply is an important step. So I'll circle back now to you, Frank, if you have any thoughts after hearing all that.
Yeah, I guess if I could just further expand on some of the comments that I've received and some of the concerns, just for, you know, not to sway the board in any way, but just for the general edification of why I'm even bringing this forth. There is a image in the sign book of what is recommended versus what is discouraged. And I understand, you know, the signs of the example for why it should be discouraged, but the sign that is what is, I can't remember the terminology, but it's what is encouraged by the sign committee. When I presented that in front of members of the HDC, they said that it looked like a street sign. And that one board member, who I don't want to call out in a public forum, and said that they didn't understand that this is what they were approving. The time, one of the members here just mentioned how this was discussed at length and was reviewed and approved was in August of 2021, which was kind of during the madness of COVID. And I think a lot of things kind of went by without the general public really understanding what was going on, and maybe people just weren't paying attention. Nobody's fault there, and I don't think anyone was trying to slip one by, but I think this revision went on without the general public really understanding what was going through, including some members of the HDC, as I mentioned. I think that in our discussions with the fire department, just recently we had a very large safety meeting with Joe Townsend of the Nantucket Fire Department and the Nantucket Villages Association. It was very clear from their end that a clear sign is of great importance. And I understand that there's provisions currently. I think that perhaps what is suggested by the sign committee currently might not provide enough of a noticeable marker for some job sites or most job sites. And I'm not looking for an increase in size, or, you know, I'm not trying to make this a big billboard flashing neon signs. I know that that's not what anyone's trying to do here. And I also don't want it to be misconstrued that I'm looking for shameless self-promotion, of which I'm guilty of, but that's not really what we're looking for on these signs. It's more just to make it a very clear identifying marker, both for life and safety issues, and also for the general public to know really who's responsible. There's a myriad of examples I could present everything from, you know, the neighbor's cat falling into a foundation hole and not knowing who to notify to, as we've all seen some job sites where trash is blowing out of an uncovered dumpster and who's responsible before it becomes a problem for a neighbor. So I think there's a lot of reasons of why these signs really need to be very clear. And all I'm asking for is maybe a further discussion about how can we make the sign a little bit more identifiable. And lastly, if I could, there was a comment about one sign per location, which is fine. There's just one area where that gets a little tricky. Sometimes with Concom and DEP numbers, if the property fronts on multiple streets, I have a property that this has come up before, where it's mandated that they need to be able to see that DEP number from both sides, both streets that this project fronts on. So maybe that language could be also cleaned up for those kind of situations. I'm not asking for multiple construction signs, but just allow in those cases that there's some leniency. I thank you for your time.
Thanks, Frank. Yeah, I would say that, you know, without this going around and around for too long today, because I think everybody's kind of made a good point as to how they feel, but it would be great to work with the NBA if you want to come back in with suggested revisions, if you feel that these guidelines don't meet the needs of the builders and there's a consensus there. Let's talk about it further. I don't think any of us want to sacrifice safety or you know, if you need to have DEP numbers posted, obviously those are things that we can't recommend against. But come back if you have a proposal that you'd like us to review or discussion specifics that we can review. I think we felt like we really went through and, you know, being in the trades and understanding the needs, we tried to make this as good as we could. So if you think that it needs revisions, I would say come back with some recommendations and we'll put it on the agenda.
Chris, if I may add.
Yes, Mark.
I think in addition to this, given the amount of time and effort that our group has put into this, that we should maybe have a quick dialogue with the board and make sure that, because I feel like we're having discussion with MBA, and then there's a separate discussion with MBA, maybe having with the board itself.
Very good point.
But I think we should have a direct dialogue with the board on this to kind of convey where we landed and why we did. I don't think our signs are really, and maybe citing, I'm going to suggest we cite other examples, like the beach signage. All the beaches are identified by number for emergency purposes. Those signs aren't much different in scale from what we've been proposing for construction sites. DEP, I think, is always been independent of the signs. Those signs have always been sort of independent of and not added to this construction sign. So maybe we citing some other examples, and street houses, you know, house numbers by building code are simply the numbers posted visible from the street somewhere or on the building visible from the street. And these would be serving that same purpose in terms of identifiers, and then adding the additional information for contact, which I do think is important. So just adding that, I think, and then maybe we do a little homework, package some material and find an opportunity to present that to the board so that we make sure we're aligned in this discussion. Thank you.
That's a great point. So, all right, there's no motion to make. This was really brought to us for conversation purposes. Thanks, Frank, for starting that conversation. And we'll see if you bring back some ideas. That's a great idea. And we'll talk, Esmeralda, if you would put us on the agenda to just discuss with the HDC that this is a discussion happening at our level, that would be great.
Okay, we'll do.
Okay. Thanks, Frank.
All right. Thank you very much. Happy holidays.
Thank you, Frank.
Thanks.
Okay, let's bounce back up. With Billy not being here, Esmeralda, is there anything to report on enforcement?
Unfortunately, no, I don't, since he has
Okay.
taken over all that whole side of the stuff, so I don't have anything to report to you guys.
Okay, thanks. So we'll hope he's feeling great for the 9th of January.
Thank you.
Any other motions that somebody would like to make?
I just, before we get off the enforcement, has
Oh, Ben.
anybody been down Fair Street and seen that freestanding sign in front of the church? Am I crazy that it's new? Has anybody looked at that?
Which church?
Boy, the big stone one that, I don't know.
St.
St. Paul's.
I haven't seen it.
Okay. Cause I drive into town that way to work and I see it every day and I swear it's new. So I know we didn't let St. Mary's put a big freestanding sign in front of their church. I hate to, again, I know this is the second meeting that I've said this, and I hate to, give them a hard time, but I think it's new. So if anybody's
And a
on Fair
picture.
Street, take a look.
Okay. Esmeralda, would you make a note just to check the file on that property?
Will do.
Thanks. Okay.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that everybody has a great holiday.
Second.
You second that.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yeah,
Thank you.
cheers.
Have a
Right.
good Christmas.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Motion to adjourn, I'm assuming.
So moved.
All in
Yes.
favor?
That was
Aye.
it.
All right,
Bye.
Aye.
Aye.
Cheers.
all right, take it easy, everybody.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.